to Kickoff, baby.
Yeah, countdown to Kickoff. And this is the pre-Bama week. We're going to be covering Alabama tonight, and we'll cover them next week as well, because this is the really first big game of the season, the game that we've all had circled. And just because it's so special, we got a special guest. Eric Taylor from Bulldawg Report is on to help us figure out
Bulldawg Report.
Yeah, he's going to help us figure out what we got to do to beat big bad Alabama. What's up, Eric?
Pretty good. Thank y'all for having me on.
Oh, thanks for coming on. I was thinking about this earlier today. Eric and I were talking pre-show about how much the 2 weeks is just going to drive us nuts, because this is the game we've had circled for over a year, really. As soon as the schedule came out, whenever it was, this was it. But also with this 2 weeks, we have so much time to prepare. This will be a game, if you are a fan that desires to get into the weeds on every team you play, this extra week is going to allow you that. And we have just the perfect man lined up tonight for those that like to get into the weeds and play with the numbers. So I'm very excited.
We're so excited. We would have done this, before the season started, because we've mentioned before that, yes, Alabama is a tough habit to break, and Georgia still is trying to exercise some of those demons that were prevalent during the Saban years. Now, these are the DeBoer years, so we don't know how that's going to play out. Alabama has not played much of a schedule thus far,
right?
But this is when it gets real. They did go to Wisconsin this past week, and Wisconsin is Wisconsin. They still don't have the athletes to stay with Alabama. Alabama exposed that, which, give credit, they did expose their weaknesses, and that's what Georgia's going to try to do as well. And having 2 weeks to prepare for us and for the Kirby Smart staff is going to be amazing.
Well, I will say also, Wisconsin's starting quarterback goes down on the first drive, and that had the game lost anything at that point. I was wanting to watch to see if the USF they felt very much after USF the way Georgia did after Kentucky. You just have an unsatisfied feeling. And honestly, there were elements in the Wisconsin game where you're like, this doesn't feel like Bama. Now the final score looks like Bama, because you just can't run with those guys for 4 quarters, not when you're Wisconsin. But it's yeah, go ahead.
I said, before we dig down into some interesting facts on that, or I guess interesting things on Alabama and what we think needs to happen, let's look at their schedule so you guys know what's happened thus far. Alabama started off the season with a home game against the Western Kentucky. I don't know what their mascot is, but they had no issue with Western Kentucky. Just lots of huge plays, just big plays after big play. They didn't have to execute any drives. Really, 63-0. They ran roughshod over them. Then they had a real struggle, kind of like Georgia had with Kentucky. If you think about it, it was still at home. Alabama won 42-16 over South Florida. It was a 1-point game in the fourth quarter. It was, 15-16, or what was it, 13-14, right in there in the fourth quarter. And then Alabama just broke loose, and the tide began to flow. The dam broke, the tide flowed, basically.
Yeah.
And then this past week, they did take a road trip to Wisconsin, and that was supposedly going to be a test. And it was a better test than the other two. But like you said, just the roster just doesn't add up. And it's just like if Georgia went to Wisconsin, that's probably what you'd see. 42-10 was that game. And these teams get up, Smooch, Eric, but it's like as soon as they see what's coming, against any of these elite teams trying to step up and play, they'll give you a good shot early. But when the dam breaks, it just collapses. And Alabama's got some athletes too. They'll take it to the house. And you don't match up that well.
What's the Keanu Reeves football movie called? The Replacements. There's a line in there about a dialogue in that movie where he's talking about quicksand. You're fine until you step in the quicksand, and then you make one move and you slip deeper, and then one move and you're a little deeper, and then one move and you're over your head. And that's what happens with these teams that are just significantly under-talented and under-coached going up against a juggernaut like Bama.
Well, Eric, you have put up some great content, prolific as a matter of fact. Some of the things you've been putting up that we read and we try to figure out.
Yeah, you put up stuff faster than I can read.
So we look at it, I try to decipher it, and I say, man, this, sometimes it tells me, it gives me more description of what I thought I saw, but a lot lately there's been some surprises in there where Georgia ranks and these other teams, the other top 5, 10 teams, where they rank in terms of who they played and their strength of schedules and just the way they performed. But I want to ask you a question because we are going to focus on Bama and Georgia. What do you feel like Bama has done well in the first 3 games?
Bama, surprising to me, actually runs the ball better than they do pass the ball. When it comes to their run offense, they're actually the 5th ranked overall team in the SEC. And when it comes to passing, they're 11th, which you would think with all their explosive plays, that would be reversed.
Wow. Absolutely, because they seem not to have had a lot of sustained drives this year. They seem to be based around the big play. But the rushing, I've noticed that when I look at the final score and then I look at Milroe's passing numbers, something doesn't add up there. Where are all these points coming from? Because the passing numbers aren't always very traditionally impressive.
They aren't big numbers. They aren't at all.
Yeah.
And it hasn't faced a team that's made them execute long drives. They really haven't. And within that type of a game, you're going to have to process. You're going to have to do a lot of things differently and hit receivers at different angles, different ranges, and the timing's got to be right. You got to get protection. But they are capable of just throwing it over the top. When you got defensive backs who have been playing, they played this year, they can just kind of bide their time and hit one over the top and then spring a running back right up the middle. They've had so many runs this year, just right up the middle, bam, and just break right through and just run to the end zone. Looks like you see in Pee Wee football a lot. Now you could take that a couple of ways. Is Bama just that good again? Their offense is just that good. They're making everybody, these teams who aren't. We see, you heard the names of the teams, but are they going to be that good when they face real competition? And they got some competition to face this season.
To your point, going back to where they rank, I think to Smooch's point, Alabama's actually 3rd when it comes to average yards per attempt, and then when you go to rushing yards per carry, they're number 6. So yeah, they're hitting the big play. I guess that's why they don't have a lot of passing yards overall. Is because they keep hitting the big play. And to answer your question, you heard the teams that they played, and there's a good reason why Alabama's able to do what they've done. Not to say that they couldn't do it against competition, we just haven't seen it. Right now, their strength of opponent defense is ranked 66th in the nation.
Wow!
So hovering right around mid-tier.
Yeah.
So the defenses they're playing aren't equipped, and they've shown they aren't equipped to slow a team down. And that's happening. I don't want to get too far, but that's happening in other classes, other programs as well, where they're putting up. We've seen some big numbers in the first 3 weeks. You saw a team like, let's say, a team like Tennessee, who's put up huge. Did they have 70 points by halftime, Smooch, this past week?
Something like that. I know they ran an onside kick in the first quarter, up 30. That's when I decided.
Who does that?
So what is
somebody trying to convince themselves of something?
How does the defenses that Tennessee has played? How do they rank?
Okay, so their strength of opponent defense is ranked 123rd, and their strength of opposing offense is 130th. And
is that good or bad?
That's near the bottom.
That's what I thought.
And I know we're talking about Alabama, but it seems like every week I hear a new media personality talk about how stout this Tennessee defense is, and it's like they might as well be playing tackling dummies.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
100%.
So, yeah.
They love the narrative. They'll keep spinning it.
Those things do matter, and so we do think that Alabama. I don't know. Before Georgia put this monkey wrench into my brain, and create with the performance against Kentucky, that I was feeling pretty good about Alabama, because I see some issues, and I think Georgia approached them the wrong way last year. I don't see that happening this year. I don't think Georgia's going to come in and be cautious whatsoever against their offense. And I think that once you start closing those windows for Jalen Milroe and make him make some quick decisions or process quicker than he wants to, and you're willing to get after him, I think that's going to that was what Georgia should have done more last year. And they were really worried about him springing loose and getting loose. And I just don't think you can do that because that's the best way. If you let him sit back, that's the problem right there. So, but yeah, Kentucky did kind of put a wrinkle in my brain just a bit when I'm like, oh, okay, I was feeling really good about this game. I'm still excited about it. Obviously, we're super excited about Georgia, Alabama, and going to Tuscaloosa for a night game. But yeah, so we've seen Alabama. I think I know what their strengths are. It should be able to run the ball. They got some really good backs, and running the ball is going to be. I mean, even against Georgia, they're going to try to utilize that quarterback run as well.
Absolutely.
Do you see that?
Absolutely, and you saw Brock Vandergrift able to use that against us Saturday. The other thing about the running game is they got a running back in their backfield that's probably looking forward to putting it on Georgia in Justice Haynes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we went down to the wire with him in recruiting, and his father's a Georgia legacy, and he chose the bad guys, and did not really play last year, right? So he's salivating. I said when he was in high school, he had some of the best feet I'd seen. We can get into the rest. How you put it together is your thing, but he has great feet, and I bet he is ready to get a piece of Georgia.
Yeah, it will help Georgia getting. It looks like Michael Williams. I read the injury report today, and he's on track to play against Alabama. So is Warren Brinson. Maybe not Jordan Hall, but getting those two guys, getting Michael Williams back, huge for this defense, Smooch.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Michael could have gone. Had Saturday been a playoff game, Michael's out there. Look, they just took it. You don't like to look ahead, but sometimes you've just got to use common sense and look ahead. There is a monster waiting 2 weeks down the road, and we've got to be at our best for him.
Well, so running the ball, anything? You got any favorite players in terms of the passing game, Eric?
You got to stop Ryan Williams. Like you absolutely have to keep an eye on him. You have to. Yes, sir.
Hey, wait. How old is he? Does anyone know?
I hear he's 17.
Is that right? Football.
That's apparently he's a good wide receiver against some overmatched teams, but he is only 17, and that might be something that they point out a lot right now. But a few mistakes in a big game, and they might be saying, "Well, he's only 17. He's only 17. Too hard on him."
Look.
He gives me Jamison Williams kind of vibes, but again, have we seen him against a good corner?
Right.
We have not.
And
if you saw the Wisconsin defensive backs, no, not ready.
There's two different ways you can look at something. If the kid's always wide open, do you say he's that good because he's catching balls with no one around him, or do you?
If he does against Georgia, then yes.
Yes, that's right, right. So if he does that against Dalen Everett, then we'll say okay, he's really that good. Now I think he is. I think he's great. I think he's of course a first round talent, but. What Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a game plan till you get hit in the mouth. And it's going to be, you're going to, 17 can feel real 17 when you're getting hit by a freak of nature running at you, covering you, locking you down, rather than this turnstile type of defense they've been facing. So,
I didn't think about this before. Like, it literally just hit me as we were talking about this. Can he outrun Malachi Starks or KJ Bolden?
No, the answer is no. But he's got great routes. We know that he's got good hands. He has that real good sense of space and players and vision and all that natural. But so does KJ Bolden, to be honest with you.
Well, a part of that is that Georgia shouldn't be giving Milroe enough time to hook up a lot. If you give him 4 or 5 seconds, he's gonna make some defensive backs look bad. Most good receivers will. And so Georgia's got to do a good job of getting after the quarterback. What do you think, Eric, in terms of what maybe Alabama struggles with? What do they not do well?
It's really hard to tell that with the competition that they face, because when you're blowing teams out by 60 points, it's kind of hard to show your weaknesses.
That's a great point. So
I will
say they can't execute long drives. How about that?
They have yet to have to. So yeah, like that's one thing. That's a question mark. Can you sustain long drives without making mistakes? Because Milroe was susceptible to making mistakes last year.
Right. Something else I noticed, and I believe I messaged you this earlier in the week. Just the eyeball test. They seem to me, even though these final scores look very Alabama, the scores at halftime do not. And even into the third and fourth quarter of some, is there something that shows sluggish starts when you look at the numbers and the data?
They have one of the worst first half offenses in the nation.
Wow. Alabama.
So yeah, their first halves, even though they have played, I think it was somewhere in the 80s, 82. No, wait. Their strength of opponent defenses was 60, 62. Yeah, so, I mean, they haven't played a real good defense yet, or at least not one that would bring that average up to even the top 20s.
Right.
So it's kind of worrisome that they can't move the ball in the first half against these defenses.
I would agree. Yeah.
To piggyback off that, something that really made me feel good rewatching the Kentucky game today is I was noticing that they were double teaming TID and they were double teaming Christian Miller, and y'all just brought it up. Bring 13 back, bring 97 back, double team guys then and see what happens.
Oh, excellent point. Excellent point. I think that's the whole reason Michael Williams was missed in a way that Trayvon would have been missed. You can look at the stat line and say, oh, we needed those stats. That's not it. You need what he did to everybody else out there, and that's what Michael brings. That's what we missed. But no, I can see that.
And while we're talking about this, can I ask, why do we take Jalen Walker off the field? Like, why do we take I'm sitting there looking at him.
Just call a timeout when he gets sleepy, when he gets tired. Yeah.
Why are you off the field?
Yeah, he had 48 snaps, but they had to cover up a lot of snaps because I think they had like 70 plays. I can't remember how many offensive plays did Kentucky have. It was a lot.
I know they had 10 drives because both teams had 10 possessions each. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at it today, and I'm just like, we are so blessed at linebacker, like trying to get everybody to play. I get that's why Jalen doesn't get to stay out there, but it's like that position is so loaded.
Yeah. And that's when you look at stuff like that, when you look at elite depth, not elite play of your best 11 against our best 11. I think Alabama can line up with Georgia at elite play, their best 11 against our best 11. But it's when you get down into the 2s and 3s that they start to separate so much that Georgia can not just the ratings of the players coming out of high school, but they actually have playing time. They actually have success on the field that's measurable. And I think that if Georgia can just make the game with Bama a game of depth and a game of toughness, I like their chances.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like y'all were talking about earlier about Jalen Milroe and it being different this year versus the SEC championship game. He's not fooling, or should I say, their scheme isn't fooling Raylan Wilson or C.J. Allen this year.
Yeah, I don't believe that. Yeah, and back to the linebackers from this last game. And I think they are recognizing, and they have found a way to utilize Jalen Walker. The only linebacker that had more snaps to him was C.J. Allen this past week. So they're utilizing him, I think, more and more, and he's becoming a player they can keep on the field. And why not? Because he does disrupt everything. It's been good to see. Mm-hmm. Looking at it now, we're just kind of starting to dig down on Alabama. What's the best way to attack them? What does Georgia have to do? This can be for either of you guys.
I think you blitz them. That's the one thing we did not do last year is we kind of played coverage and double spied him. I think we need to be more aggressive this year. Come after him. Another player I wanted to mention after the Kentucky game, Gabe Harris is playing with his hair on fire right now. Yeah. Kentucky could not stop him without a double team. Yeah, I'm like, it's amazing how many pass rushers we have. Like, I really hope we don't lay back and let him pick us apart instead of going after him this time.
Yeah, I think
if you do that again and lose, then you have only yourself to blame. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think there was a huge mistake made, and it was this: if we just make Jalen Milroe a passing quarterback, we win the game. And that was the belief. And if you give anyone enough time, they can complete passes, and that's what we did. The two spies, and we've actually increased at linebacker significantly at speed. We're faster at safety this year than we've ever been. So let's trust one guy to spy him if we're going to run a spy, and let's get after it. And yeah, just accept the fact he may have. What if he has 100 yards rushing? Keep him at 100 yards passing. We'll be just fine. And so let's stay after him. Let's put him on the ground. Let's make him work for every little bit of it. And I think that's going to be the difference. I just think we got, as a coaching staff, in our heads so much about trying to scheme this quarterback out instead of letting our horses go up against their horses and just
Smooch,
go for it.
Talking about Georgia's offense, and I think you've called this out, that Beck, and maybe this is just in general quarterbacks, much better when you get him on track early.
Yeah.
Go ahead and let him turn it loose in that first quarter, the first couple of drives. You may still go 3 and out. Mm-hmm. Let him find his rhythm because everything flows off him, and he's that difference maker. You want to get the best out of Beck. You want him to have the opportunity to be his best and get him in rhythm early, make some big plays. That first drive, hey, scheme up some good plays for him, get him going.
Fun. Yep.
And Georgia, I think, can make some hay against Alabama's secondary. That's what we've seen is their weakness. Nobody's been able to expose it thus far. We've seen the competition. Mm-hmm. Georgia is a team that should be able to do that. They just got to execute. Mm-hmm. And, I don't want to get into a game where – because it is about execution. It's still about execution. You can draw the perfect play, and you still got to execute that. Yeah. But I think Georgia, based on what they've seen, and if you think Georgia's got a better coaching staff than Alabama does, then they should prepare that way. You should be able to see that play out, and Georgia should have those plays and I guess the philosophy and schemes ready to go for Alabama. And you got 2 weeks prepared. They got 2 weeks prepared for Georgia. They might have got a little rat poison with Georgia barely beating Kentucky, just like Georgia got rat poison with South Carolina beating Kentucky. So we'll see. It's going to be in Tuscaloosa. I think Georgia's favored right now by a point and a half. Did anybody see that?
I've heard that. I haven't seen it yet. I think it's just a pick on especially
it basically is.
Especially with it being at home for Bama. I don't see how Georgia could be a favorite going in. That's a little hard for me to swallow, and that's just strictly from a gambling standpoint, not from a football love standpoint. But I'll tell you this, Troup Brinson, going into this game, back to your point about Carson. Carson has inertia, more so than any quarterback we've had in a while. Whatever he's doing, he's going to keep doing. He has a hard time reversing. So if you get him uptight and in his head and thinking about things, he's going to play more uptight and in his head and more thinking about things. Stetson Bennett was probably the polar opposite. You knew Stetson Bennett was about to blow up if he'd been quiet for 3 quarters because he's going to explode with a run like he did against Auburn. Something like that's coming out. With Beck, you've got to get him engaged early and get that swagger. If you pay attention to him in the huddle, he does this thing where he winks at his players after a play, that kind of thing, that thing that shows that confidence and leadership. If you take it away, like we did, we took it away from him in the Kentucky game, and he never got it back. It's not a switch you can flip on and off with Carson. Got to get him engaged and got to get him in the flow of the game as the game's leader early on. If you can convince Carson early in the game, this is you against Jalen Milroe, there's no way we lose that game.
Right.
No.
Right. I was just thinking that, Smooch, and it's true because Carson is the better passer. You need a quarterback who can process and pass, especially against good defenses. So looking at that on his face, and Carson can run when he needs to as well, but you would think that he should have an edge there, especially with 2 weeks and Georgia having a little chip on their shoulder from what happened Saturday night, and then a chip on their shoulder from what happened in SEC championship last year. You got to feel like Georgia's going to come in there. And as long as they play their A game, then I feel very confident that Georgia is equipped to win this game and to win it not easily, but to win it in the fourth quarter and win it by a score or 2. That's the way I feel. I would have felt even more strongly if, again, they didn't throw a little monkey wrench into my psyche against Kentucky Saturday night.
There's 2 things about that I want to say. One, it's funny. Like I'm so glad that Smooch said the thing about his eyes, because I was in the group chat on Saturday night and I said, is anybody else noticing Carson's eyes right now? Like, I kept saying that because they look dull. Yes. And I'm like, I'm so glad somebody else noticed that. Mm-hmm. Like, he did not look like, you bring up Stetson, man. Stetson is the prototypical gunslinger. Yeah. Or he don't care. If he sees a play he can make, he's going to make it.
Right.
And he may throw an interception trying to make that play, but he's going to make that play.
Yeah.
Carson's more calculated. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that took him out a little bit of his game was our perimeter blocking Saturday. So, like, they basically took our screens away because I don't want to call out players, but there was guys that weren't even getting. That's not the one I'm thinking.
Okay.
I mean, yes.
Yep. We saw it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and say it since y'all said trust. On the second drive, on first down, Ben Urisic got beat.
Disaster.
And then he olayed on the next play, and we had to punt. And I'm just like, how can one player by himself just stall a drive? And I'm
that may have been his last chance to prove himself. I got the feeling he played so poorly. He's played poorly for 3 games, and so I got the feeling this is it. You go prove yourself this game. They gave him every opportunity. He failed at every opportunity. I will be very disappointed to see him in a prominent role in Tuscaloosa. Very much so.
Yeah, I would. He looks like he's still in the Pac.
Have been killing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He looks like he's still playing in the Pac-12. I think
he does.
He does, and it's just a different. Yeah, I think he's more of a wide receiver, and if you can, but in Kirby Smart's offense, there's a lot that you've got, and we've talked about.
I'm not
that
sure he's tough enough to play wide receiver for Kirby. Yeah,
he doesn't look like it. So all right. Well, we're going to continue to track this game, and this was just our first little salvo at the Alabama Crimson Tide. And we're going to put a lot of stuff on social media leading up, and they're going to have their chest bowed out. And we're Georgia, so we're going to have our chest bowed out. So it's going to be a great couple of weeks till we get to Tuscaloosa on the 28th. I think that's when the date is. We can't wait. Eric, so great to have you. Tell us about your content and where we can find it on social media.
All right. My content is basically efficiency metrics and stuff. You can find me on @ReportBulldawg on Twitter and the Bulldawg Report on Facebook. And I also have the BulldawgReport.com is my website where I blog every now and then. One more thing I want to say about Alabama is, could their fans please remember?
Sorry, go ahead.
that Nick Saban is not on that sideline anymore.
He's not. It's provable.
They keep bringing up all these stats about, Alabama is this and that after bye weeks. Alabama. No. Nick Saban was. Your logo wasn't. Nick Saban was.
Ooh, right, there it is. There's
I
the
agree.
clip.
Some heat. There we go.
You will see that clip on all our social media platforms right there.
Eric, Bulldawg Report, thank you so much, my man.
Thank y'all for having me.
You got it, buddy.
Countdown to kickoff, baby.